Hello there, my name is Ismail, and today we're going to be looking at texturing in Blender 2.8, and this is going to be a somewhat more advanced tutorial than what I've done before. And so what I'm going to try and go for is a PBR texturing workflow, and I'm going to be trying to replicate the Substance Painter workflow, texturing workflow. If you don't know what Substance Painter is, it's basically a texturing program that is used a lot in the visual effects industry and gaming industry. It's very popular. It's made by I think, is it Algorithmic? Yeah, that has just been bought by Adobe. Yeah, so it's a very powerful texturing program, and I'm going to be trying to replicate their workflow in Blender 2.8. So what they do, let me this. Okay, let me hide this flow here and grass so that my viewport is a bit more smooth. So basically what you do in Substance Painter, so you have you create a shader that gives you slider controls over, say you have this object here, this object here, and you want to control how much rust is there on the object. You just have a slider that you can slide to control that rust. So something like this. So you can remove this you can remove the rust or add more. So it makes everything really simple, and so that's what we're going to replicate in this tutorial here. And if you wanted to change the color, that is also very easy. So you can actually, I like this red even better. Maybe let's try it. That isn't bad. I like even this better. You know what? Let me save this, and that's what I'll put up for sale on CG Trader, because I think I like this even better. So let's see how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this texture here. I'm going to only focus on this chassis, this here. So let's delete that shader. Actually, let me not do that. I'm just going to delete the shader from here so that I have this spot still there. I just replace this shader with a new shader. So I'll just delete it from here and create a new material. I'll call this car shader 2. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to do, if you want to follow that kind of workflow, to have control over the sharpness or the worn out areas of your car or any object that you have, you need to bake out a sharpness map and an ambient occlusion map. And to do this, you want to go to cycles, switch to cycles. Let me just hide everything so that I make this a bit faster. So in the new shader, we want to bake out the worn out areas, which would be the sharp areas of the car, or the pointness of the car. So go to your nodes and add a geometry node. This will give you access to the pointness output that will render the sharp areas of the object. Unfortunately, right now, Blender if it doesn't bake anything, it doesn't render the pointness node, and also doesn't bake textures. So we're going to be using cycles to bake. So let's preview this pointness. So to preview the value here, you can use Control Shift. Let me make sure that my shortcuts are on. To preview the nodes here, make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, and then you can use the shortcut Control Shift and then click on the node to go through the different nodes. The node we want to preview is this pointness, and right now you don't really see anything there. You can see the sharpness there. You can see around this grill here, but it's not powerful enough. So to make it more pronounced, you can add a math node and change the operation to power, and you can use this slider to increase the contrast or to make the that the pointness even more pronounced. Another way to do that is to control that is by use of a color ramp, convert color ramp. But the reason I don't like using this here is that you have to play around with the figures, play around with these sliders, and see how to get that. But the reason I like the power is that the power node is that you only use one slider to get the result that you get with this color ramp. So that's why I'm using it here. So let's preview it again. This is what we want, and we want to bake this out onto an image map, and make sure you have the model unwrapped, UV unwrapped, and your UVs are not overlapping. And then for some reason the principal shader doesn't bake the color. So what you want to use is a diffuse shader. So connect the value there from there to the diffuse shader, and then preview that as your output material. And then in cycles, go under the render settings, scroll down to the bake settings, and change your bake type to diffuse. And also make sure you turn off direct and indirect lighting, because you don't want to render any shadows or highlights or light directional light on your map. So turn off direct and indirect light, only remain with the color, only bake the color. And we want to bake it to an image, so just add a new texture image, click on new, and call this whatever you want, or call this color 1, then hit OK. If you want, you can turn on 32-bit. I'll show you why you would want to turn on 32-bit, but for now let me just click OK, and then make sure you have this selected, and then you can hit bake to bake out the texture. So I already baked out that, so I won't do that again. So let me delete these two and preview this here. So now I can, after baking that out, you can also bake out the ambient occlusion, because you might need that as well to add any dust or dust and dirt. So we can switch back to cycles, to EV, because that's a faster way to preview what you're doing, and then we can import different textures that we baked. So the first texture we'll import is my this pointness. I named it edges, so you can see also I also baked out the ambient occlusion in case I want to use it. So you can import that, and then let's preview this. You can see the sharpness. That's how it looks. So to make it more pronounced, you just add a convert math, and then change the operation to power, and then you can increase that like that. But to have more control over this, you can add a color ramp like that, and that way we can control the contrast like so. You can even add another node in between here, and you can change it just to get more control. You can see if you want more sharp areas or worn out areas, you can just use this here like that. So let's put it around there. So the reason why you would want to check the 32-bit float option when you're baking out the texture is that you can see that we have these I don't know, facets, or whatever they are, that mosaic pattern. It's because we baked the image as a 16-bit image, and it doesn't have enough information to make a smooth gradient between these between the white and black areas. So if you bake it as a 32-bit image, it would be larger, but it will have more information, so it will be easier. So you won't be able to see you won't see those kind of facets or I don't know how they're called, mosaic pattern. So yeah, so you can see now we have this map here. We can use it as a mask to tell Blender where to render worn out areas and where to render fresh paint. So I have some reference images that I'm using, that I'm looking at here. You can see and you can see that there is this paint here was not white. It was this dark blue, but as time went on, it eroded and then started to become worn out. And you can see some areas are worn out and some areas are not. And you can also see this this edge here, this sharp edge here, is a bit lighter than this because it's a bit worn out. So you can see this in a lot of reference images. So if you want to if you want to use this reference program, it's called PureRef. You can download it. Just search for PureRef and you can get it for free. I found it very useful and I think I like it. So yeah, you can look at some images and see how your texturing would work. So I'll just put this on my side screen. So yeah, let's mix the two colors. So what we're going to do is let me put it on the side here. And the good thing is that it can be overlaid on top of your program. So it doesn't work with Blender, but in some programs it always stays on top of the program. I don't know if it's a setting. Let me see. No, it's not. But basically what I want to do is have two colors, one for the worn out areas and one for the non-worn out areas. And to do that, and then I'll use this mask we have to tell Blender which color goes where. So let's get those colors using the color mix RGB node, and this gives us two colors. So one will be our worn out color, and you can see from the reference image that the worn out color is always lighter than the non-worn out. So let's see if we use this as our factor and preview this node. Let's add some random colors. You can see that so our bottom color is the worn out color, and then this here is going to be our, this blue here is going to be our non-worn out color. So let's change it to let's use this like this, and this we can give it a slight blue tint to show it was this blue that worn out. So you can play around with the contrast here if you want to make more worn out areas. So you see, this is what we have. Again, if you look at the reference image again, you can see that even in the worn out areas, you have a few non-worn out areas that have been eroded, that have not been eroded very well. So we can use a texture, and let me get a texture map. Let me find something interesting. Let me get this here. So if we preview this, Control Shift and then click, this is not good enough. Let's try this here. So basically this is the texture I'm using here. You can see it has those sharp areas, those kind of scratches, but I think the resolution is too big. So let me add some texture UV coordinate mapping, and reduce that. I don't know if I like these dark areas, but I will see how they come through when we mix them with when we mix them with our edges, our sharpness map. So yeah, so let's see how we can use them here. So if we duplicate this power node or math node and preview it for a second, so you can see it's nothing. But if we get this, let's first use this here, connect this here. If we use this value, it makes it darker or lighter, but we want that to be controlled by our sharpness map or our eroded mask. And so this what will happen is that it will render these scratches in areas that have been eroded. So we can just connect these as our second value. Now if we preview now, you can see what's happening. You can also try out different operations. So let's try add. You can try out subtract. You can also try. You can even play around with this to see if it will have any effect. Let's try multiply. And I think this is what we want, because we want this to only appear in the worn out areas. So let's see. We can also, because we don't have any slider here to control the value or the amount of erosion we want, we can just duplicate this power node and put it in between here and control that directly like that. But, maybe let's change this to subtract. Let's try sailing and see. Let's try flow. Fractal. Now let's try flow and see. I don't want to control this slider here because it's also influencing our worn out map here. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate this and instead use it for that. Let's play around with this. Let's change this to say subtract. And add this here. So this process is basically experimenting with what you're doing, and let's invert this value and see. So if we invert this here, color, invert, yep, now you can see that the worn out areas are getting have those scratches that we want, and we can control how much scratches we get using this. Now we can increase the scale of the scratches to have more detail in them. So let's select these. And I don't like these dark areas, so let me find a different texture here. Let me try this here, which is these scratches here. So let's use this instead. So just get this like that. Okay, the resolution is too big, so let's add the texture coordinates and we get this, that now the resolution is too small, so let's reduce that a bit. Play around with the contrast of this and see. So right now this is how our worn out paint looks, but we wanted to have more scratches in it, like using this map here. Using this map here, so let's see how we can do that. So if I got this here and I duplicated this, let's see, and then connected this down here. Let's try maybe power. Try multiply. Actually, multiply is better, so we can play around with these values a bit. And now, instead of our map being like this, we can make it look like this. You can see that it has better details than what we had before. And then you can switch out the scratches to anything you like if you don't find this as interesting. And now if we feed this to our principal shader as the base color, you can see what we have. So let me unhide everything. And see how that looks. You can change the color to whatever you want. But make sure that the paint color is darker than the worn out color. So I think you can leave the worn out color to be white and not pure white, just a bit like that. So we'll be making a roughness map as well. Let me make this metallic and see how that looks. And you can also use these scratches as bump maps. So if I add a bump map like this. I can connect this to the height map and connect this to the normal map. And you can see what we have. Right now it's too much, so we can just reduce the strength to 0.1. And we have something like that. It looks more like leather than metal, but because these scratches are everywhere. If they were only in a few places, then we wouldn't have that as a problem. But let's continue adding. Let's add some rust. So let's look at the reference image again. Where is this? You can see again, rust is in worn out areas, is in more exposed areas, and then in those creases, or yeah, in those creases. So again, we can still use the pointness node. So let's see if we can reuse this. You know what, let's just create a new setup. So I'll again import our texture, our roughness texture, sorry, edges, and add a convert color ramp. So the white areas will have rust, and will have more rust than the black areas. Now we can add a power node, convert math, change the operation to power, or you can try out other operations, say sealing. And basically what this will do is make everything either black or white. There won't be any gradient kind of yeah, there won't be any smooth in between range for that. Let's try modulus and see. Let's try tangent. Square root. Absolute. Interesting. You can see, you can experiment with different looks that you're going for. But let's go with this flow. Let's see flow. To control the value for the flow, you have to control the gradient here. So you can see, same for the ceiling. This value won't work to control any of the values in this area here. But if you want to control those values, you want to play around with the gradient here. So these areas, I think, should represent where our rust will go. But we need to, you can see that these are very sharp lines. So we need to give them some bit of jagged edges. So let's find a texture for that. I will find texture for that. So let me use this here. I use that. So you can see how that looks. And we can add a node here, change it to maybe subtract, connect the two. Let's first preview this node here and see if we play around with this. Yeah, let's add a power node here. Let's first preview this node here and see, because I want this to be more powerful before we start playing with it. Again, if you don't want those kind of facets or mosaic patterns there, you need to increase you need to change this texture to a 32-bit texture before you bake it. So let's see how this looks. Now if we play around with this, so our rust can look a bit like that, and you can add more of it or reduce it using this power node. And so this cell should just make different areas sharp. So because you can see in our reference image, different parts either have rust or they don't. So there is no transition between rust and paint. You can see it is either rust or paint, and that is why I'm adding this sailing node, so that I can get the same effect there. Otherwise, if we only had this, you can see that there is that kind of transition between there would be that transition between a paint and rust, which we don't have in the reference images. Let me get them back here. And this was too rusty, so let's see if we can find a different image. And you can see even on this here, like for this maybe there is some transition between it's actually not a transition, it's just that there's a lot of noisy spots with text with rust, and but again you still see that sharp contrast between rust and the paint, and that's the kind of thing we want to go for. So by using this sailing node, we are giving that sharp contrast that we need for the rust, and but I think we have a lot of rust on this car, so we can either reduce it, or I'll show you how to paint back some of the paint in some areas, because you can see that we are going to have a lot of rust here, and a lot of rust here, and a lot of rust here, and when we try to reduce this, we are also taking away rust where we don't want it to be taken away. So we can just paint that back using texture painting, and I'll be showing you how to do that. So yeah, we need a rust texture. I don't know if this would work, but let's try that out. And we need a mix RGB node, and this is going to be our factor for these two. So our rust is going to be in the red areas, and our paint is going to be in the blue areas. So this is our rust texture, so we are going to connect it to the red map to get that, but this image texture is a bit too large, so we need to to reduce the scale of the texture. And I don't, that texture is not really good on its own, so I'm going to add another texture, blend it with a different texture. So this texture here, I think we also need to scale it down a bit, something like that, and blend it using the color mix RGB node with this other texture. So if we preview this, so we can change this to maybe overlay as our blending mode. That makes it a bit not what I want. Let's see screen. What about multiply? Let's lighten, soft light. It's too saturated. I guess maybe we will just reduce the saturation. Let me look at the reference image. Okay, I think the saturation is okay, because you can see that this is also a bit red, oversaturated. So then we need this to be our rust. So if we preview this, yeah, you can see, I think that's a good saturation. And now we can bring in our worn out map, mix this this here with this. And if we preview, you see what we have. But that rust is a bit too much, so we need to reduce that by playing around with these sliders. And again, if we want more text, more rust, we can either paint it back, and if we don't want it, we can just paint it away. So let's preview our final thing here. Also make sure that this is our final color map. Connect that directly there. Now you can see what we have. You can change the color to whatever you want. I'm not really sure which color will look best. Let's go with the blue. But now we lack normal maps for this rust. So what I can do is so this is our normal map, and it's getting its input from here. But we need also some normal map from the rust, and the rust is this here. So we can just, this is the rust. We need a color mix RGB. Connect this rust there. So to have this, to have that, and also connect the previous normal map we had, this here to this, but we want that to be mixed with so we want the rust parts to have their normal map, and these worn out parts to have their own normal maps. So we can use the same mask here for that. Okay, I think that's it. Then we can bring this back down. So this needs to be black and white, so I can add a color ramp, and this will also help us play with the contrast of those bumps. Now this can be fed into our height map or normal map, and then we can preview this to get this. Let's increase the strength a bit. Now I want to have control over the strength of the rust and then the strength of these scratches. So what I'm going to do is separate these two. What have I done? Undo. I've done something here that I'm not sure what it was. Let's preview this again. Okay, so let's duplicate this, and let me see, where is this? So we won't be needing this node because we're going to control each normal map individually, so we can connect this, which is going to be our rust normal map. So connect this to the height. Basically this is our normal map for the rust, and we can play around with the how much that gives us. Now we don't need this mix node anymore, so we can delete that. And we also have these scratches. Actually, I think we do need that. I don't know, let's see. So if I connect this to the height, this can be connected like this as a second normal to this, and if we preview this, you can see they have been mixed together. You know, actually we need the mix node to have better control. So let's try the let's try this math node and see if that would help. Actually it won't. Let's use the color mix RGB again. Currently this is how it would look like, but we want to use this rust mask as our factor to get a map that looks a bit like that. But we need to have some control over this, so we can control the rust normal map using these. And for this we can just add a color, sorry, convert math node, change this to power, now that way we can make it more powerful or less powerful, or instead of using that we can just use a color mix RGB, color mix RGB, change this to multiply, connect this to that, and so we can control the amount. Actually, no, don't change it to, make sure that the operation, the blending mode is mix, and now we can control how much that comes through. So something like that. If we want more, we just put it around there. If we want less, we make it 1. If we want it to be more powerful, we just do that. So let's connect this to back to the color, and this back to the height. And if we preview this, so if we want less scratches there, we can remove them totally, and then bring them back. Let's try. So this map was inverted. Let's see if it's not inverted. I think that's good. And for this, for the rust, no, let's also do the same. Let's just bring this. Control it like that as well. So if we wanted to paint back some of this paint, we can add, so we can find the texture that is controlling this map here. So that would be this edges map. Yes, this. So we need to add another image that we are going to paint on. So I'll call this rust paint. Hit OK. And what we want to do is mix it with these edges. So change this to multiply. Let's see screen. Basically what you want before you paint it, you want to make sure that right now this mix here looks exactly the same as this, which for some reason it doesn't. Actually it does, and that's what you want. And now we can paint the different areas we want here. So again, this would be fed into this to get us to the final sailing, to this final thing that gives us our rust. So we can paint this back here. So we can go to texture paint, texture painting. Make sure you have rust paint as your painting map. Now we can try painting this here. So if we go back to shading, let's make sure that we have the right map. So rust, let's preview this. Yeah. Okay. you see how we have brought in some of it. Is this actually this is supposed to be here? So let's paint texture paint. How is it not working? So that paint is still there at this stage, then around here it's still there, maybe it should be black instead of white. I think it should be black, but the problem is our canvas is also black. So let me see, can we change this? Okay, so we can change it. Let's change it to white. And change the blending mode here from screen to multiply. Let's try overlay. Let's try. Maybe this should be gray so that it doesn't interfere with the other thing. So let's see, use the image editor. So this can be around. Okay, let's also paint black here, white and black, and see how that would come out. And the final thing, so we want this to be, let's try screen, multiply. Let's try screen. I don't remember what operation I used here, so let me try opening that back up. Let me just add a cube here and add this. Let me hide this. Let me add what's called car001, and I was using overlay, and the color for this was what? Let me see. It was gray. So let's use that. So using overlay, but the problem is what this color should be. If we make it too bright, it changes everything. It removes everything. If we make it too black, it also removes everything. So let's put it around the middle there. Let's see. Maybe let's connect this here and bring this after that. Oh, we just need to switch these around. And this is the problem with making tutorials. You do something and it works, and you try it again and it doesn't, and you make a fool out of yourself. But you just have to bear with me on this. So if we switch this around, hopefully we get the same. So it's a bit darker here, so we can let's connect this and see. So we are seeing some coming in here, so let me look at this cube again, because I can't really understand why it's not working. You know what, let me just so basically that's what you have to do. If you get this to work, you can just paint back the rust or the paint, but for some reason it's not working right now. Okay, so yeah, let me end the tutorial here because Blender is also not responding, and nothing seems to be working right now. So yeah, if you found this useful, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. If you want the project files, you'll find them on my Patreon page, or you can just get them on my CG Trader account. Thank you.